everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Crafting with Cosplay Fabrics. My name is Indra, and today I want to show you how you can create your very own Star Wars inspired original costume. So I have seen a lot of people very interested in creating their very own costumes for things like Disney Bound, going to Batuu, or things like the Galactic Star Cruiser and stuff like that, or even for just like creating an original character. So I really wanted to figure out what are the things that make a Star Wars costume look like a Star Wars costume. So these are the things that I found out. So first is textures. I found that textures were always present. Anything on costumes either had some form of an interesting fabric, and even the very like plain looking ones had some form of a small texture. If it didn't have like a extravagant type of like texture or anything like fancy, then it tends to be very worn, very old, or also weathered. So those are some things to kind of consider. I also noticed that whenever there are any patterns, they tend to be very organic, very natural, very like nature themed for the most part. I also noticed that whenever there are any sort of accessories, most characters tend to have some form of accessory, and obviously they tend to have to do with wherever the character is from, but most accessories are also very, very natural. They tend to be metals, leathers, beads, stuff like that, that is just very, again, organic. Most of the elements that I found tend to be just very natural or organic things for the most part. I also thought the same for colors. Colors tend to be very neutral, very natural. There are hardly ever any bright colors. Any type of coloration tends to be very like muted or jewel tone, and most outfits tend to be very monochromatic or follow a certain like look as far as the overall theme, so if it's very like worn, then all the pieces are worn. If it's very like Senate, then it's very like clean with lots of pleats and things like that. But overall colors tend to be having to do with the character, where the character is from. So you'll find more neutral desert tones, colors like that. With the character is more like desert, you'll find something different. If it's like city, so you'll find more blue tones, more yellows, oranges and things like that. Anything with royalty tends to have, like in the Star Wars universe, it tends to have a lot of brighter colors than the other. But anything like fancy tends to be very like gray, monochromatic, very blue, or things like that, just for in general. I also found that shoes tend to not have any laces. Buckles and things like that are absolutely present, but for the most part, shoes tend to either be covered or they do not have any visible laces for the most part. And the last, but I think probably the most important, is layers. Most costumes have a lot of layers, and I think that this really brings the costume together. I notice also that not a lot of pieces tend to be very form-fitting. Some are, but for the most part, most costumes are just very flowy, even boxy, and they are very just neutral. There's not, I think they're very like gender neutral, and I think that they aren't form-fitting at all. It's just everyone tends to kind of wear very similar things, so it's just layers. And that also paired up with some of the styling. I think these are the things that really make a costume look Star Wars. So having all of this information, I figured, why not put together a costume? So these are things that you probably already have pieces from like other costumes, or even things that you might have in your own closet, or having these like little bits of information might help you if you want to either purchase something maybe online or in a store, or maybe like go to the thrift store and find some interesting pieces that you can kind of layer and cobble together to create your very own original character. So let's go take a look at what I have and what I can come up with using these little rules or boundaries, I guess. But please do note that there are of course exceptions. This world is so huge, the lore always keeps expanding, but these are just some general things that I found if you want to just have like your very own sort of generic costume that looks very I guess recognizable. So let's go take a look. So here is my final look. I try to start with a darker base and then work up to some lighter sort of accessories and things to layer on top. I started with a pair of linen pants that they were baggy, so I figured that would be a great look to just kind of tuck into my boots, and also a 3/4 shirt that also had this really nice texture to it. I also then found this olive suede like vest, and what I did is I buttoned it up with the buttons on the inside, but this is also something that can be worn open. I just tucked the edges inside to hide some of those buttons, since that's also something that I didn't find in a lot of Star Wars costumes. The other thing is I made these boot covers and this like scarf like thing out of an old sweater that had this very worn beige look to it, and it all came together with just some styling. And then I also made this cuff using our brown textured pleather, and all it is just a rectangle and just tying it around my wrist, and it actually ended up looking pretty cool. I think this makes a pretty convincing Star Wars costume. Obviously with a lot more time, more tailoring, even some weathering or things like that, you can create a really amazing original costume that looks straight out of a movie. I hope that you like this tutorial. I hope that you find it useful. I hope that this maybe gives you some tips on how you can create your very own costume. And thank you all so very much for watching. I hope that you like and subscribe. And I will see you soon for another tip, trick, or tutorial featuring cosplay fabrics. Bye-bye!